Hey friends, welcome to my channel, aHauntMess. This is a channel where we discover all things spooky, dark, macabre, scary, eerie, unsettling. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, you found yourself in the right place. My name is Lauren Alina, and I am so incredibly happy you're here. Today, we're going to be talking about haunted jobs. According to Google AI, allegedly, accordingly, not my data, but approximately 46% of Americans have jobs, either full-time or part-time, currently right now as of October 2025. That being said, statistically, people have some haunted and spooky stories to tell, right? Let's get into it. Before we get into it, guys, can we talk about this thrifted sweater? There's a ghost, a bat, a full moon, a cat, and a pumpkin. I'm so excited. Anyway, let's get right into these stories. Today we're going to be reading off the phone instead of the iPad. So here we go. I grew up on a large, blue-collar, working ranch, and depending on what area of property we were on, we had some paranormal experiences. It started off with small tools vanishing, doors and windows slamming, and even stranger, odd, unidentifiable animal noises and cries that none of my coworkers could even recognize. One of the mountains near our work, my granddad demanded that we never go out to at night. He never explained why, but he simply stated we would be stupid not to listen. Most kids would be enticed by that. One evening at work, my granddad, father, and brother were out at the ATVs doing landscaping. It was time for our break, and we got something to drink and plopped a squat on some nearby rocks. My granddad's ATV still idling several feet from us. Randomly, a sharp whistle broke out in the distance. A whistle used back in the day, used to herd the sheep that used to inhabit these fields. Where our ranch is, there used to be a wool farm. The whistling was followed by yelling and yipping now. My granddad turned off his ATV just to be respectful. We all looked over in the direction of the noises. The whistling and shouting was coming uphill from our location, but a rock formation was blocking our view. The sound grew louder, and we all waited to be greeted by farmers of the sheep. However, no one was seen. The sounds grew louder, sounding like they were just feet from us now, and right as it grew its loudest, it grew completely silent. We all exchanged confused glances, acknowledging what we all just heard the same thing. My brother picks up his rifle, slings it over his shoulder, and heads towards the area where the sound was coming from. My father followed him, and they were unable to locate any tracks or signs of any people or sheep nearby. My granddad shrugged and said, probably some ghosts. My brother and I couldn't tell if he was joking, but we all quietly got back to work. That's pretty creepy, also kind of cool. On to the next one. My best friend is a nurse. We'll call her Becca. One night, Becca was floated to oncology at the hospital she used to work nights in. She was given a report on a patient who was actively passing away. The patient had been unconscious for several days, not opening her eyes, not eating, not responding verbally or to painful stimuli. In the middle of the night, Becca went into the room for her hourly rounding, and the patient was at the top of the bed, standing straight up, terrified. The patient's eyes were wide, and she was looking at Becca and yelled, "Don't let them take me!" Becca was freaked out and asked, "Who's going to take you?" And she said, "That black thing up there," and pointed up to the air. After that, the patient died within minutes. Okay, well, I'm currently a nurse, and I worked in the hospital, and I am so uncomfortable, and I feel itchy. I don't know logically why, but big ooh for me. Okay, on to the next. I currently work in the medical field and was helping with a workup for my patient who needed a routine exam performed. Before the exam began, the patient's mom advised the child psychiatrist wanted to rule out any physical issues prior to conducting any type of medical evaluation. I became genuinely curious and asked the mom what she thought was going on. Parents know their kids best, we should listen to them. Before the mother could answer me, the child, who was 12, goes, "Oh, I see shadow people," in such a matter-of-fact tone. I then asked them how long they'd been able to see these shadow people, and they said, "Oh, since I was 5. I see them everywhere, especially the mirrors at home." I felt a bit taken aback and had to know what they looked like. The child responded, black figures. I understand from a medical standpoint this could be manifestations of schizophrenia, but I have personally experienced things I cannot explain as a child, so I am torn. Maybe they could be experiencing something paranormal. And to note, all of their tests came back normal. Listen to your kids, people. Next story. It's kind of long, so bear with me. This experience was back in 2020, right before the pandemic started. I was a FedEx delivery driver a year into my career, so I switched to a much longer route, which included the downtown area of my city. Our city was not the safest to be either day or night. We had our fair share of shootings, homeless people, and the pretty frequent drug addicts. But I was raised in this city, so it's really all I know. It was nearing 2 p.m., and I was making great time on my routes. A package for a church on a busy main street would be the next drop-off. I was curious what it was like because I've never been to this one before. As I grew nearer to the church, the street became familiar. This is where a few of the homeless camps were. I reached the church and locked up my truck, making sure it was secure. Package in tow. Churches were never really my thing, as I was force-fed religion my whole childhood. This old church was beautiful though. Its big double doors wide open as I made my way up the stairs. I just figured the doors were open to offer aid since it was a struggling economic area. As I entered, I announced my presence a few times. "Hey, FedEx!" I looked around, unable to find anyone. No one answered my calls. I walked around, and there was a large hallway, which I figured would have offices in. I yelled out a couple more times, letting them know FedEx was there, with a package. Still no answer. I turned down the hallway, and it grew darker. I felt a random sense of danger overcome me, but figured I was just anxious in the dark. I found a door with light shining underneath and opened it, but to my surprise, the room was completely black. The door closed behind me, making it impossible to see. I quickly pulled out my cell phone to use some sort of light, but then heard a succession of slamming doors behind me. I immediately became filled with panic and sprinted out the way I came. I felt a wave of heaviness and sorrow take over. It felt like someone grabbed my shoulders and walking became difficult, like when you try to run in a dream, but you just can't. I don't know what happened next, because the next memory I have was being in my truck in a random neighborhood, streets away from that church. I was sweating and crying with that package secured in my seat next to me. I'm not a crier by any means, so this whole situation is very not like me. I felt a sense of dread and depression after this. I looked at my phone, which read 3 p.m. Somehow, I managed to lose an hour of time. I felt completely emotional and confused. To this day, I will not go inside that church ever again. Even if I get written up, even if I get in trouble, I don't care. Creepy. I've been in churches a couple times for work-related things as well, and it was creepy too. We were the only people in there clearing it, so I never felt like that though. That's a lot. I feel like they need to probably sage their truck. And also, what was that package? Obviously you can't legally open it, but just a lot of weird questions I have. And on to the next one. I work for a food truck business, and at the end of the shift, we all park and store our vehicles in an old historical building. When I was first hired, overnight bakers told us they have experienced some strange occurrences. Disembodied voices, things disappearing and reappearing, like pots, mixers, utensils, measuring cups, all that jazz. One of the older bakers told me that he'd often hear fast-paced footsteps coming from the stairwell when he was working overnights alone. My job would require the occasional late-night start to complete work while my boss finished stuff in the office section of the building. Typically, I can deal with being alone anywhere, but nope, not here. I get this dreadful feeling. And it's weird because leading up to this, I've never experienced anything creepy at my job until that night. I made the conscious decision to disregard the creepy stories coworkers told me and focused on the night. I finished doing the dishes, I locked the doors, and made sure I completed the closing checklist. I flicked off the lights and started heading towards the exit at the end of the very long hallway, thinking about what I was going to have for dinner when I got home. I turned to shut the door behind me, keys in hand to lock it, and suddenly, I froze, witnessing something I still can't unsee. At the end of the hallway, towards the area I just left, I saw this extremely tall, lanky, and solid black figure of a man. He appeared to be wearing a suit and a hat with a brim. Tall is an understatement. He looked like 6 to 7 feet tall. I felt my stomach literally drop to my knees. My entire body broke out in a cold sweat and my ears started to ring. I couldn't even breathe. I was scared out of my mind. The man didn't move. He just stood there, ominously. I could see the details of his face. That was until he cracked a sinister smile, which somehow glowed, while the rest of his face was just a silhouette. It's almost like his outline was darker than the darkness and the shadows around him. As soon as my brain regained focus, I could move my body again. I quickly locked the door and half jogged, half sprinted to my car. The entire drive home, I felt so unnerved. I really don't want to go back tomorrow night. Okay, so what he saw reminds me of the Hat Man, which is a paranormal entity that a lot of children see. And the weird part is, how did all these children see that if they don't have access to the internet and hearing the stories? Kind of suspicious. Okay, friends, only a couple more. Hang in there. You're doing great. I appreciate your patience. Some years ago now, I was a captain in our fire department, and we were called for a house fire in the early morning hours. When we arrived, the roof was completely in flames, 2 windows exploded, raining down glass from the second floor of a split level. We worked together to enter the home despite the roof being breached. There was a distinct temperature change about 2 feet off the first floor. Typically, this is not a home we would enter, but a child was not accounted for. The parents had managed to escape the home, but they couldn't get to their daughter's room. The father was in tears. EMS was tending to the burns on his hands and arms he had sustained from attempting to go after her. Both parents were frantic. The mother informed us her room was on the second floor, second door to the right. We remade entry, and the smoke level up to about 4 feet from the floor now. While we headed up the stairs, I saw something that neither myself or my teammate could explain. There was a swift motion below us to our left, down on the main floor. Someone was walking around downstairs. Neither of us could see a body through the heavy smoke, but we could see legs wearing olive green trousers and feet shoed in brown leather dress shoes. The legs were moving in a way that felt like it was meant to gain our attention. We turned back and headed back downstairs, following the legs through a small hallway to a room. We make our way to the end of the hallway and find ourselves in front of a shut door. I felt the door and concluded there were no flames behind it. We pushed the door open and entered a bathroom, the light still on overhead. Curled up in the bathtub was a little girl, but oddly enough, no one was in the room with her. We broke the window and got her to the secondary crew who was protecting the neighbor's home from the fire. We searched the room, unable to find the man we just saw enter, and there were no place for him to hide in there. We retreated from the home and made sure to control the scene. The home ended up being a total loss. The little girl went with her parents to the hospital where everyone was checked and thankfully cleared. The father only with small second-degree burns. The next day, the family stopped by the station to thank us for saving their little girl. The mother asked how I knew to check the bathroom for her. I asked about the man wearing green pants and brown leather shoes, to which the dad pulled out his phone and showed us a picture of 2 men smiling, standing in a lawn. One of the men was wearing olive green trouser pants and brown leather shoes. He might have been able to tell by my facial expression because the father smiled. Yeah, that's my dad, and he passed away 30 years ago. The little girl's grandpa led us to where she was. We were all speechless, and that's the only time I saw a ghost at work. That one is very heartwarming. That one's a good one. My friends, you've made it this far. This is the very last story I have for you, and it's a personal account. It was, well, let's preface by saying trigger warning, child death. If that is not something you want to hear, let's end it here. Thank you so much for watching. Anyone else that wants to continue to listen, here we go. So this took place summer 2 years ago now, when I was a nurse in a pediatric emergency room. We had a child pass from a motor vehicle accident. I was holding C-spine and helping with chest compressions, trying to bring the child back. Firefighters were crying. It was a rough scene. That's to kind of give you the background. parents were not there. They were involved in the accident as well, obviously. So it was just all of us medical professionals and this child. It was heartbreaking, it was hard, and that was my first child death as a registered nurse. We were in our specific trauma room that is dedicated for high-level traumas. About a week later, I was walking down a very long hallway, passing the trauma bay on my left, and I heard clear as day, "Hey." I stopped in my tracks, looked around, thinking it was a friend, coworker, who knows, somebody needed my help. The trauma bay was empty, obviously. We had like 3 patients in the other hallway. There was no one in this hallway. I was 100% by myself. I heard it clear as day. I was like, okay. Went to the bathroom, came back past the trauma bay on my way back to the nursing station, and once again heard, "Hey," again as I passed the trauma bay. Once again alone, thinking that maybe my friends were messing with me. No, nobody was there. Nobody needed me. And that is my ghost story at work as a nurse. I bet if you ask your friends that work in healthcare in any capacity, they probably have so many more stories than I just provided. So see what they have to say. Thank you guys so much for getting through this video with me. If you liked it, like it, leave a comment, share any spooky things you feel comfortable sharing. And if you feel compelled to do so, please subscribe. We're at 4. We could use some more. Thank you so much, guys. Have a wonderful and safe spooky season. Until next time, bye.